Welcome, everyone, to the Millionaire Secrets show. Glad to be back with you for another episode. Appreciate all of my friends and family out there who have been faithfully tuning in now for, I think we're coming up on a dozen episodes. A really exciting episode in store for you today with a new friend of mine who as I was just telling him, I've been lightly stalking him online, and I'm fascinated. I've become a genuine stalker at this point. I'm deeply interested and impressed with what I see. So anyway, his name is Dr. Myron Golden, and he's here to impart some amazing wisdom with us today. And I'll let him talk more about his own career. But from what I've seen, it's been pretty amazing. The guy could sell a ketchup popsicle to a lady in white gloves, probably has. And he's going to teach us how to.
Never heard that one before.
No. Well, you got one challenge in front of you still. But anyways, man, you're going to tell us how that works. So I appreciate you being here.
Sure. So I'm glad to be here, Jeff, and I appreciate the opportunity to share. I believe that there's been such a major shift in the world over the last several weeks and months that people have to figure out that the best place for them to work is from home. It's really interesting. Of course, if you've been stalking me, right, you know that I teach business from a biblical perspective, and it's really, that's the foundation. But if you look at the original workplace was home. The original place of education was home. So home is like our haven. It's our safe haven on earth. It's the place where we have our provision and our protection, and we have our promotion, the people that we care the most about. And so home, when it comes to work, there's no place like home. So
yeah,
I haven't had a job working for the man since 1994. Neither myself or my wife has had a job working for the man since 1994. That was the last job we had. So however long ago that was, I think that was 26 years ago, something like that. And so we make more money usually per day than we used to make in an entire year, both of us working together. And that's because we figured out some things, how business works, how money works, and we've worked with that instead of working against it.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here then, because based on as much sampling as I can do, my audience is largely comprised of people that are aspiring to what you just described.
Sure.
I haven't had, I'll say you beat me by a year. I haven't had a job working for the man since 1995.
Okay.
Which that was my one job. I was 16 years old and it lasted for 3 weeks. So
wow.
I had my fill of work.
Thank you for making me feel old. Yeah.
I have people making me feel old now on the daily, but it took me 3 weeks to get my fill and go, yeah, this isn't for me. And I'm sure just like you, we recognize that the world is consistently now creating these tools that basically make working from home a very reasonable thing. I mean, there was a time when it was like a fringe thing. It was, I mean, depending on what you did, but if you wanted to be really successful and make a lot of money, the idea was, you got to go work for a company and you got to climb the ladder, right?
Sure.
Or you got to be in a few specific white collar service businesses like medicine or legal. And now it's like, I just look at the world. I'm like, why wouldn't anybody do this?
Right.
It's right. It's just sitting there for everyone to see.
Yeah, you can make more money working from home in less time than you could ever make working at a job. And that is provided that you figure out how to create something that's valuable in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always share with people, all of the money that you desire and don't have right now, it's in somebody else's pocket. So you're when it comes to generating revenue, your goal is to figure out, how can I get those people to take money out of their pocket and put it in mine?
Right.
And how can I do that morally, legally, and ethically, and have them feel good about it?
Right.
So I've got to give them something they value more than they value the money. If I give you $1 and you give me $1, we both have $1. And it doesn't matter how many times in one day or in a year, like if we just keep trading $1 back and forth, we do that every day, hundreds of times a day for a year, then all you have at the end of that time is $1, and all I have is at the end of that time is $1. Which means people don't ever pay you money because they think the thing you gave them is worth the money. People only pay you money when they think the thing that you gave them is worth more than the money they paid you. So
yeah, that's a really great way to put it. And yet it needs to be the other way around for you. It needs to cost you less to get it to them than what they pay. And that gap that's really what business is. It's creating.
It's where wealth is created in that gap. That's where wealth is created.
Between, I guess you would call it between value and fulfillment cost.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm interested in knowing, well, actually let's just follow that thread. So 1994, which there was no ClickFunnels. There was no, I know, right? Yeah. We laugh. I started 2008.
Was there an internet in 1994? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think there was, but it was dial-up. It was dial-up.
There were no templates for having an idea and turning it into a business quickly.
No.
And there were no cost efficiencies really. I mean, back then, if you went to a guidance counselor and I was like, well, I want to be a business owner, they would be like, okay, either go to trade school or buy a franchise. Right.
Or go to college and get a business degree, whatever that means.
Yeah. Like that's going to somehow help you own a business.
Right.
But obviously you figured out a way. So do you mind taking us back?
Sure. Well, I probably need to even go back further than that. When I got started, when I first got married, I was poor. And when I say poor, I wasn't just poor. I was pitiful poor. The definition of pitiful poor is when you're so poor, poor people feel sorry for you, right? And we were struggling. We were struggling big time. I can remember being so broke that we had to take the cushions out of the couch and the chair that we owned, because we owned one couch and one chair. And we had to take the seats out of the car that we had so we could find enough change to buy a loaf of bread so we could eat peanut butter and jelly, because we had the peanut butter and we had the jelly, but we didn't have any bread. And my wife was pregnant. Right. I can remember being so broke that when my wife was 8 months pregnant with our first child, our water and electricity were both disconnected at the same time because I couldn't figure it out financially. So if you're out there right now and you're like, oh, but you don't understand because you have all this money, I promise you, more than likely, I was more broke than any person watching this right now. And so, but what I did, shortly after our first child was born, I found the job driving a trash truck for $6.25 an hour, $9.50 an hour for overtime. And so I'd get up at 2:30 in the morning. I'd go get dressed, go to work, drive a trash truck for 8 hours, sometimes 10 hours. And then I'd come home, take a nap. And then I had a business on the side. So I had my full-time job during the day, but I had a business on the side. And my business on the side was very unseemly for a trash man. And that was, I sold financial services. I was insurance licensed. I was securities licensed. And so I would go out and I would sell insurance and investments. I would sell life insurance and I would sell mutual funds in the evening. So that was what I did for a business. So I had a full-time job, but I had a part-time business. I didn't have a full-time job and watch television part-time. I didn't have a full-time job and go to football games part-time. I didn't have a full-time job and watch basketball games part-time. I had a full-time job and I had a part-time business. And when I wasn't working on figuring out how to create freedom for my family, I was sleeping so I'd have enough energy to figure out how to create freedom for my family. There was no watch television. We didn't have a television until my children were teenagers. We didn't have one. We didn't cable TV. We didn't have TV at all.
Right.
Why? Because I wasn't going to watch somebody else live their dreams while we were living a nightmare. And so when I had that business, when I first started it, I actually started that business in 1985. And I was so terrible at selling, Jeff, that it took me a year and a half to make my first sale. And my first commission check was $166.25. I'm like, I was terrible. I was so terrible. But then within a few months of making that sale, I became the top salesperson in our office. And somebody asked me, Myron, what happened? What was the shift that took you from not being able to make a sale for a year and a half to becoming the top salesperson in your office? And the shift was that I ran out of all the ways that wouldn't work. And the only thing that was left were ways that would. And so I eventually got good enough at business to have some moderate success. Moderate success means that while I was working my full-time job, I was making part-time on the side, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month part-time,
Mm-hmm.
which back in the 80s and 90s, that was significant revenue. It wasn't great, but for part-time money, it was good. It was definitely more money than I was making for my full-time job.
Right.
And so fast forward, my wife and I were working at a children's home in 1994. And fortunately, while we were working there over that 4-year time period, we bought a house, paid cash for it. Now, don't get all excited like it was a mansion. We bought it at the tax sale in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for $200. We
Wow.
bought a 5-bedroom brick row house for $200, spent the next 8 years renovating it, right?
Huh.
And we bought that, I think, in 92, and spent the next 8 years renovating it, but we lived there while we renovated it. And I had my business. So we didn't have a house payment. We didn't have a car payment. All we had was utilities and food and taking care of our children. So my mindset was very different back then. It was like I was really focused on being debt free, which I think being debt free is good. I think starting if you make first base on your way to financial freedom, becoming debt free, I think you're hampering yourself and you're going to do yourself a disservice. More on that later. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, we got to the place. I started this business, had my first 6-figure year in 1999, had my first 7-figure year in 2005, and now, we have months that are 7 figures. So,
from my research, it sounds like you have hours occasionally that are.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to go there, right. But yeah, because it sounds so unbelievable. But it's because, here's why it sounds unbelievable, because we've been told a lie. And the lie that we've been told that we've all bought into is that time is money. But time is not money. When people say time is money, there are 2 things that I immediately understand about that person when they say, well, time is money. I understand they don't understand time and they don't understand money. Because time is infinitely more valuable than money. I know for a fact that if you run out of money, you get more money, because I've run out of money before. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact if you run out of money, you get more money. You can get more money. If you run out of time, you don't get any more time. So time, because you don't get any more when it's over, is infinitely more valuable than money, which is why when you go through life believing that time is money, what you'll do is you'll trade a whole bunch of your time for a little bit of somebody else's money, right? Because you believe that time is money. So you believe it's a good trade-off. Me, I believe time is more valuable than money, so I spend as much of my money as necessary to buy back the rest of my life. That's why I can run a multi-million-dollar business and I work part-time.
Right.
Because I've bought back my hours of my day so I can spend that time reading books, learning the things I don't know, learning new languages, traveling around the world, hanging out with my wife, playing with my granddaughter, going to the golf course. I can use that time that I've redeemed, that I've bought back, to invest in things that are far more important to me than just making money.
And at some point, you clearly used it to get a PhD. I assume you didn't have that when you were a trash man.
No, see, so I believe that there are so many life hacks. I had no desire to be a PhD. First of all, let me say, and I know you called me Dr. Golden, but you could call me Myron. You could call me Hey You, right?
Okay.
I am not a prima donna, which is the male version of a prima donna, right? So, but I was not looking for a PhD. Didn't have a goal of having a PhD. I didn't care if I was ever a doctor or a nurse. I just didn't care. It wasn't my group. Like a title means, if somebody calls me a friend, that's a title that I value. My children call me dad. That's a title that I value. My wife calls me husband. That's a title that I value. She didn't call me husband, but I'm her husband. That's a title that I value. If somebody refers to me as being honest, if somebody refers to me as being helpful, that's a title that I value. Doctor, sure, it's nice. And I guess it tells other people something about me that they feel like they'd like to know. But, it's just, that's not what I was seeking. So basically, there was a university chancellor who founded a university and who was at one of my events. And basically, they learned more in 2 days about biblical concepts and business from me than they had in their entire life. And they're like, our college would like to give you a PhD for your life's work. I said, oh, like an honorary doctor's degree? They said, no, you've already earned it. We just want to recognize you for the work that you've done. I was like, oh, okay, how does that work? They said, well, you have to take a test. So you had to take a test, you have to do a dissertation, and then you have a graduation ceremony. Okay, cool. So I'm probably one of the few people in the world who have a PhD with no undergraduate degree.
That's okay. So I'm glad I asked, because that's
me too.
It's an amazing, it's an amazing example of how the universe kind of works, for sure. So one of the things I picked up on in your story, in hindsight, it's easy to sort of refer to time in a very casual way. I recently made friends with a person who was wrongfully imprisoned. He's one of these stories that you hear about, wrongfully imprisoned for like 25 years, and was exonerated by DNA evidence that they were able to get retested. And, he can speak of his time being incarcerated in a casual breath, but 25 years is a long time, right?
It's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, you live that day by,
That's a long time to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and to live it day by day, it's, time is interesting that way, right?
Sure.
In the past, it's like so casual, and in the future, it's so daunting, right? And I say that because as you're referring to your story, you're sort of like referring to these intervals of time. Like, well, in 1994, I did this, and I guess back in the 80s, I did this, and then in 1999, I had 6 figures. In 2004 or 5, I made 7 figures, but these are long intervals of time.
Oh, for sure.
6 years, 10 years, 15 years, and yet. And the reason I say that is because I think now we live in a culture of such immediate gratification and such comparison, where it's like, I see this thing on social media and I want the thing. And so I'm just trying to fast track to the thing. And people, I think, maybe have lost. And I'm speaking from observations in coaching and training and getting feedback. Like, people have lost an appreciation for how long it takes to do things well. And the internet can't change that. Even though internet connects quickly, it doesn't transform quickly. So I'm going to give you my understanding of what you're talking about to the best of my ability. So if you look at the platform that God created in the beginning, he created a platform, what we call physics. Okay. Physics are how our life is governed on this planet, in this universe, by time, space, and matter. Time, space, and matter is the platform. Right. So time is time, space, and the platform is a 3-dimensional platform, time, space, and matter. Time is 3-dimensional, past, present, future. Space is 3-dimensional, width, height, and breadth. Right. And matter is 3-dimensional, liquid, solid, mass, and gas. Okay. So we understand that these are all 3-dimensional. Okay. So if you understand that the parameters that we have to operate inside of that platform or on that platform is also 3-dimensional. And that platform is the parameters for us to operate successfully on the platform are be, do, and have. And that's the order in which it has to happen. So when people find themselves frustrated, with their inability to have something they desire, they don't realize that that's part of the plan. Because the platform of time was created for the purpose of being. Anything that you are going to become that you are not right now, that's what takes time. Having success can happen in an instant. Becoming the person who can do the thing that's going to have the success, that's what takes time. Like if you have children, you don't, like my daughter has a 9-month-old, right? So I've got a 9-month-old grandbaby. We don't say to our 9-month-old grandbaby, go clean your room. Why? She has not become the person who can do that thing. And it doesn't matter what incentives we give her. Go clean your room and I'll give you $100. Go clean your room and you can have ice cream and cake. It doesn't matter what incentives you give that infant. They have not yet become the person who can do the thing so they can have the stuff. So what we all have to recognize is when we are seeking to have something that we are
keep bumping our head up against, the reason we can't have it is because we haven't done the thing that gives us the right to have it. And a lot of times the reason we haven't done the thing is because we've not yet become the person who can do the thing.
Yeah.
So if people would focus more on becoming, so let's look down the road at what I'd like to have. Let's say I'd like to have wealth. Okay. Then I have to do things that produce wealth, which that means I have to create a wealth of value. That's what I have to do. But I don't know how to create a wealth of value until I can become a person who even perceives what value is. And certainly not, I'm not going to create wealth by making something that's valuable to me, which is where most people make the mistake. But I think this is really important. It doesn't matter what you think because you're not paying yourself.
Right.
I have to create something that the marketplace perceives as value. So making $1 million, people are, oh, I'd like to make $1 million. Well, that's pretty, it's a mathematical formula. You know, a million is a number. So we can get to $1 million relatively quickly with the right leverage. Let's say, and I don't see my book in here because it's in my other office over there, but I wrote a book called From the Trash Man to the Cash Man, How Anyone Can Get Rich Starting From Anywhere. Okay. That book sells for $19.99. We sold over 150,000 copies. It's a lot of copies, right? Okay. So a $20 book, if I write a book that sells for $20, I only have to sell 50,000 books to make $1 million. Oh, wow. So wait a minute. Watch what just happened. I write the book once. I sell it 50,000 times. It brings in $1 million, right? But in order for me to sell 50,000 of them, it has to be something that's valuable in the marketplace, not something that's just valuable to me. Does that make sense?
Very much.
Okay. So, but I had to become the person who could write a book that the marketplace would value.
Right. Right.
And then getting the money is easy. Like people say, I want to have the money. Okay. You want to have the money, focus on becoming the person who recognizes and can create or partner with or establish or offer value to someone else, and the money will come your way. You can't keep the money from you.
So let me ask you a question, because, you know, as someone who is living out, and I think I have been for some time, but especially lately, I mean, there's kind of an acceleration or almost like the quickening concept, which I think is biblical, that like time is accelerating, right? Or the rate of, you know, change is accelerating.
Yep.
I've been experiencing that in my own life where, you know, there's a compounding effect. Things get easier. The money gets easier. Everything's get more abundant, but it's like, it's 25 years in the making. I decided not to have a job when I was 16 years old. I'm 41. It's about darn time. Right. But, you know, my audience and my business, even I have an education company called Entra, and we get a lot of people in that they're here for the have. Right. The have, they're coming in for the have.
They're coming for a have.
Yeah. I'm constantly having this conversation with people.
Sure.
I have to assume you are too. You seem well versed at it. How do you, what have you found is the effective way to get this message to land with people in a way that pumps the brakes a little, and they can settle into the truth of this, and that it actually can be fun if you enjoy the process?
Absolutely.
How do you get that to connect in a world that seems to be pushing hard against this message, which is the true message?
Well, I think it starts with, you know that phrase, the customer is always right?
Right. Of course.
Okay. So the reality is the customer is almost always wrong.
Yeah.
Right. They're almost always wrong. They don't know the answer. If they did, they wouldn't be looking to you for the answer. Right. So what the customer thinks they're looking for, what they think is the answer. That's what they think they're looking for. Mm-hmm. What they're actually looking for is what really is the answer. And usually those two things are worlds apart.
Right.
People want to make money, right? So that's the outcome they want to have. That's the outcome they want to have. So they think the way to make money is, well, I've got to get a job, right? Well, maybe that's one way to do it, but that's not the best answer. That's the least efficient answer. And then they say, well, I've got a job, but I want to get a better job, so now I need to get a degree. And so they're constantly looking in the wrong place because they're looking for the wrong thing. They don't understand. So watch this. Which would be easier, to sell somebody on giving you $40,000 or to sell somebody on giving you $400, let's say? Which one's easier? It's not a trick question, by the way.
No, well, I mean,
For the average person.
Yeah, $400, obviously.
$400 way easier. But if you get 100 people to pay you $400, that's 40,000. But most people focus on selling one person on giving them 40,000 and in the form of a $40,000 a year job. For those of us who are entrepreneurs, we focus on creating a product may sell for $400 or even $4,000 or even $40,000, whatever that answer is. And we figure out how to get more people to pay us less. That's one business model, right? Get more people to pay you less instead of getting one person to pay you more. So it's really about, here's what I'm going to tell everybody in Entre, and Jeff, you can agree with this or disagree, but I'm kind of thinking you'll agree based on the conversation we've had so far. So the difference between where you are right now and where you'd like to be, what you have right now and what you'd like to have, what you can do right now and what you'd like to be able to do is exactly the same as the difference between what you know and what you haven't learned and implemented yet. So literally every person watching this podcast, listening to this podcast right now is literally one idea well implemented away from their next fortune, or one idea well implemented away from their first fortune. There was a time when Jeff Bezos was one idea from Amazon. There was a time when Bill Gates was one idea from Microsoft. Steve Jobs was one idea from Apple. Sam Walton was one idea from Walmart. And you are right now one idea away. And see, the problem is people run off doing things that are ineffective and inefficient rather than slowing down to speed up. What does that mean? Slowing down to speed up. Slowing down to learn the one thing, which will give them a quantum leap in the experience of life. Because here's the reality. Change always happens in an instant. Becoming the person who can change is the thing that can take time, is the thing that takes time.
So I love that you said slow down to speed up. You know, I consult a lot of like Navy SEAL type wisdom, and they have a saying of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So you picture them moving into a jungle at night, and they're not trying to go fast. They're trying to stay smooth so nobody hears them. And so you slow down to stay smooth, but that's actually the fastest way to get there. Right. Exactly. I just love that concept. But to your point, I think that I might have lost where I was going with it. What were you saying?
Let me interject for something with what you just said. So slowing down to speed up, slow down, because being the purpose of time is becoming more than you are takes time. The purpose of space is for doing. That's why space exists. If I was all wrapped up in cellophane and taped up with duct tape, I wouldn't have any space around me. What would I be able to do? I wouldn't be able to do anything. Why? I have to have space to do, right? And then the purpose of matter is having. So the reason matter even exists is for you to have. But see, I believe that God is most concerned with our becoming.
Yeah.
Becoming more than we are. That was the first command, to be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue, and have dominion. So I'm supposed to be becoming more than I am. When I become more than I am, then I automatically will be able to do more than I'm doing. And when I do more than I'm doing, I will automatically have more than I have. And so my goal, God put in me a desire to have a nicer house and a nicer car and a nicer experience of life, so that I would be willing to attempt to do more. And out of my frustration from my inability to do more, I would finally yield to my purpose of becoming more. And then when I become more, then I can do more, and then I can have more. And then once I acknowledge that pattern and recognize that pattern, oh, the way to have more is to do more. The way to do more is to become more. Why don't I just focus on the becoming and let everything else take care of itself? You know, everybody tells you hustle and grind, hustle and grind, hustle and grind, hustle and grind. But the reality is, hustling and grinding is not natural. In nature, like an apple tree doesn't hustle or grind to produce apples.
Right.
What does a tree have to do to produce apples? A tree has to be an apple tree.
Right.
So if you'll focus on being what you're supposed to be, what you do will be the natural result of that.
And everything in nature does it, whatever it is, as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely.
Which is why it has to be.
And it's in flow.
Yeah.
More than it's in hustle and grind.
So I remember what I was going to say. So you were talking about being one idea away from your desired outcome.
Sure.
One of the things which I totally agree with, you were correct that I was going to agree with everything you said. I do, which, yeah, it was probably a foregone conclusion, right? But one of the things I see is people get, I think, a little bit paralyzed under the pressure that's implied in that statement, which is like, oh man, I got to have a big idea. And what I want to say to people is, you don't have to have you don't have to have the idea of Amazon. And by the way, Jeff Bezos didn't have the idea of Amazon in its current form.
Right.
You know,
That's right.
He started with selling books, right?
Right.
But you do have to have an idea of how to add value based on what already exists and
Absolutely.
what problems aren't being solved. But that's not nearly as big a leap as saying, oh, you have to conceive of Microsoft.
Right.
Like, you have to have this Genesis moment, right? It's not that.
So if I could suggest to everybody a thing to focus on becoming, if I can do that, and it's going to sound so kung fu, right?
I love this moment. I'm on the edge of my seat. Yes, please suggest.
I believe the most important thing that any of us can become is to become a becomer. That is to be a perpetual learner, somebody who's in perpetual growth mode, like somebody who like, there is not a day that goes by that I am not reading. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm already making fortunes, but I'm still one idea away from what I am not. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm still one idea away from the things that I don't have the ability to do yet. I am always learning. Anyone who stops learning, you've restricted your beingness. So be like, the most important thing you can be is to be a becomer, not to be a become. Don't be a become. I'm it. So you make $1 million a year, big deal. Like, so you're healthy, big, like be becoming more than you are, because you are what you have been becoming, and you will be tomorrow what you're becoming today. So if you stop becoming today, tomorrow you won't be the same as you were today. Tomorrow you will be less than you were today. For instance, let me tell you how this played out in my life. Okay. Like I told you guys, in 1999, I had my first 6-figure year. 2005, I had my first 7-figure year. 2006, another 7-figure year. 2007, another 7-figure year. 2007, we had a tragedy. Starting in 2007, we had a series of tragedies, like colossal, major life events. And I'm not going to go into the details of what those are right now. It seemed like one happened every year for 7 years, like major stuff that you can't even wrap your mind around. And it started in 2007, and in 2013, culminated into basically financially us, in 2012, us basically going as close to filing bankruptcy as you can without filing bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we were just in a bad place. I guess I got to give you some details, because otherwise people aren't going to understand what I'm talking about. So 2007, my oldest son was killed in a car accident when he was 20 years old. 2008, and I'm not saying this because they're all in the same category. They were just all major life events.
Right.
2008, they created the Great Recession, which I chose not to participate in, but a lot of my clients chose to participate in it. And people who owed me more than $250,000 got abducted by aliens. I know that for a fact because I've never seen it or heard from them again, right? 2009, we started a new business because we needed to do something to replace our income, because we held off for a very long time in ramping up our lifestyle. But in 2007, we bought $1 million home, et cetera, et cetera. So 2009, my income had gone down because these people that owed me money, and I was in the training business and people weren't spending money. So I started doing network marketing again, which is what I started with back in the 80s. And so we built our income up to $40,000 a month within 4 months. And so, we had that revenue coming in. Plus I was training people in the company. So we were making $100,000 a month again, got that going really well. Within a few months, the company made some stupid moves, as network marketing companies sometimes do. And then that income within a few months went down to nothing. 2010, we got audited by the IRS. 2011, they told us we owed them $1,065,000. I didn't have $1,065,000 laying around. Maybe you do, but I didn't have that back then. Okay. 2011, also my mom died. 2012, we had to sell our $1 million house on a short sale. We lost $400,000 on that deal. My my 2008 Mercedes S550 got repoed. It didn't get repoed. I took it back and gave it to him and said, I can't. Like, my tax advisor told me, here's what you do. You got two choices. Go make $4 million, give them $1 million, plus pay tax on the $4 million, and then, or you can do that, or you can go broke and make a deal. I'm like, okay, what's that look like? He's like, you gotta stop making money. So we had to go from, we weren't making crazy big money. We were making crazy big money compared to what most, we were making 30, 40,000 a month. But that wasn't crazy big money, but it certainly wasn't enough to even come close to $1,065,000. He's like, you can do that, or you can go broke and make a deal. So basically we went broke and made a deal. Intentionally stopped making a lot of money. And we made a deal. We settled with the IRS. In 2014, we settled finally. And then things started to turn around, except I had all the air let out of me. I was like done, Jeff. I was like so over it. I didn't even know. I lived on borrowed money for 2 years. I didn't even know. Like, I had a good friend who I had helped, who loaned me $4,000 a month for 2 years. And I didn't want to get back on the horse again. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Well, all I'm going to do is go make this money. They're just going to come take it from me. And this is gonna, like, I had been devastated so much that I couldn't find my entrepreneurial energy. And I don't know if you've ever been there. I'm sure some of the people who are going to hear this and watch this have been there.
Yeah.
But 2014, I joined this mastermind group that teaches people how to do SEO. Love the guys who are a part of it. Love the concept. They had a bunch of people making money. Just didn't like doing SEO. It was like, just gag me with a spoon. It wasn't my groove, right? But I really liked the connections that I made there. 2015, I joined Russell Brunson's inner circle. And that's when the shift started happening. And 2016, we started ramping up again. 2017, we were back on the 7 figures again. And then 2018, 2019, it's almost like a rocket ship now. Yeah. But we did something differently this time than we did last time. So the reason I shared this whole story is to protect people entrepreneurs from making the same mistake I made the first time. If I had known what I'm about to tell you now, the first time that I started creating wealth, like, those tragic things could have happened, but it would not have devastated us, and we would have been fine, even if we would have had to write a check for $1,065,000. Right. So I'm going to tell you what I've done differently this time to keep what happened last time from ever happening again. And I share this message with entrepreneurs everywhere because a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand this concept. It is not enough to just make a lot of money. Okay? What you have to do is you have to build what I call a financial fortress around your family. The financial fortress is based on the foundation of truth, the truth about wealth, which almost nobody knows. I don't even have time to go into that right now. The truth about wealth, except I'll say this. Wealth is a good idea because wealth is a God idea. That's all I'm going to say about it right now. I don't have any time to go into the details of where that comes from. Right. More on that in future, whatever. Okay. Then your financial fortress has to have 3 pillars. I didn't have a financial fortress when I created wealth the first time. I had 1 pillar. I had a leverage pillar. What is leverage? Leverage is the ability to make a lot of money in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. Leverage means you put a little energy in, but you get a lot of output out. I put a little time in, I get a lot of money out. I put a little money in, I get a lot of money out. I put a little work in, I get a lot of money out. That's leverage. In building your financial fortress, the leverage pillar is the least important pillar, but the highest priority. It's the one you have to build first. Right. My daughter called me and asked me a question yesterday. It's so funny that she would ask me this. She said, Dad, why are broke people so dead set on starting nonprofit organizations? I said, yeah, I know. It's kind of like anyway. I said, I don't know, D. I'm not sure why they do it, but it seems to be the theme of the day. I'm broke, so I'm going to start a nonprofit organization. Start a profit organization. Anyway, leverage is the first pillar. The first thing, like, you're on the entrepreneurial journey, what's the first thing you have to do? You have to build leverage into your life. That leverage may look like you creating a product. It may be an affiliate product. It may be a high ticket offer. I'm not sure, but you have to have some kind of leverage. That's the first pillar. The second pillar is lifestyle pillar, because remember we said time is more important than money. Time is more valuable than money. So I need a pillar where I can have some lifestyle. My leverage is colossal cash flow. I have these big paydays. Have you ever played Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you know how when you get on the fast track, you have these cash flow days, you get these big sums of money, right? So what you got to figure out how to do is you got to figure out how to have cash flow days in real life, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you have cash flow days, like yesterday, I think our business, I don't know exactly how much money our business generated yesterday because I haven't looked at it, but it was over $55,000, right? I know that yesterday. And here's what's amazing about that. It wasn't really determined by anything that I was doing yesterday, because I did play 36 holes of golf yesterday. I shouldn't have played 36 holes of golf yesterday, but I went and played in the morning with some friends, and then another friend wanted to play, so I went and played with him in the afternoon. So anyway, so it wasn't because I was working my fingers to the bone. So that's leverage. Then I have lifestyle. Lifestyle is created from continuity cash flow. So colossal cash flow gives me leverage. Continuity cash flow gives me lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So on a daily basis, every single solitary day from our continuity, we have thousands of dollars coming in on a daily basis from our different continuity programs. So continuity cash flow is our lifestyle. That's the second most important and the second priority in building your financial fortress. The final pillar is called legacy. And legacy is really so fascinating because it's the most important pillar in your financial fortress. But if you are going to build a fortress, you have to build this one last. And that's where people get confused, right? Because you got people who they've got $500,000 in a retirement account, but they can't pay their electric bill. Right. Because they started building their legacy before they build their leverage.
Yeah.
Right? They got $1.3 million in a retirement account, but they can't take a vacation because they built legacy before they built lifestyle. And then with the way they built legacy, they put it in a retirement account, so they can't even get to it till they're at least 62 and a half. Right? And I'm only 59, so I can't even get to the money in my retirement account yet. I mean, I can borrow it out, but I can't get to it without penalty. Right? So my legacy has to be something that I'm building. So legacy is the compounding cash flow that I create for generational wealth. This is what I'm leaving to my children. This is what I'm leaving to my grandchildren. This is what I'm leaving to my great-grandchildren. This is how I'm impacting my community. This is how I'm impacting my country. This is how I'm impacting my world for my legacy play. So leverage, lifestyle, legacy. Those are the pillars that we have to build in our financial fortress. And then we put our ceiling on that, and that is our asset protection, which is our roof. That is our wealth under our financial fortress. The wisest, wealthiest man who ever lived, King Solomon, he said, a rich man's wealth is his strong city. That's the financial fortress. But the destruction of the poor is their poverty. Anyway, just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you did. It's interesting listening to you speak. And for people in my audience, it's anybody that's been through my Entre program. We have a kind of an intro pathway course called the Entre Blueprint. It's, it's $39, and people go through it. And I mean, we talk. One of our lessons is called the 3 phases of legacy. We talk about generational wealth. We specifically talk about having a cash flow phase, what I call an anomalous cash flow phase, where your cash flow is an anomaly compared to what most people think of as like monthly cash flow. It's, $4,000 a month, $6,000 a month, $8,000. Like you got to have a $30,000 or $40,000 month, so you can get a foothold that eventually leads to true wealth. And that's all about leverage. It's amazing how much commonality there is between our language and our even our vernacular, like our words. And what I want to suggest to people is we're just 2 tips of the same iceberg. Like everybody that does this stuff, all the people that people look up to that are like the multi-million-dollar successful producer entrepreneurs, we all think these same ways. We've all gotten our butts kicked in the same way. Many of us have learned these lessons the hard way, but there is what you're alluding to, this deep reservoir of truth that you succeed when you get really tapped into. Some people tap into it the hard way. Some people tap into it the easy way, which is listen to people like Myron and be like, okay, yeah, I don't need to go get my butt kicked to learn his lesson or to learn this lesson, right?
Absolutely.
But it's all the same truth. And I think what you're really speaking about is the be, do, have. You have
Sure.
to be the person where like, these are the core driving concepts of your life. And to your point about like, you didn't have a television, you don't have a part-time job watching football, you don't have a part-time job playing poker or being in a bowling league or whatever. These core concepts have to dominate your life so much that they actually crowd out most of the clutter that actually most people call life.
Right. And most of what people call life is nothing more than distractions. It distracts them from doing what they could be doing to make their life better. And it distracts them from the pain of not becoming the person who can do the thing so they can have the stuff. It's a distraction.
Yeah. And it's, you know, you're defined in very many ways by what you say no to in this world. And it's not enough to just say no to drugs. It's say no to all drugs, not just the illegal ones. In fact, I would argue for some people, it's more about saying no to the legal ones. Right? The shopping and the sports addiction and the whatever, the friends they don't really like and all the things we use to medicate and moderate. And this, so let me ask you this. So, and I love, you know, I try to weight these conversations appropriately to how I think it actually is in the real world, which is it's about 95% who you are and how you do the work you do and why you do the work and the mindset and how you know, your approach. And then it's about 5% sort of tactical and mechanical execution.
Sure.
Because if you're going to chop down a tree, you spend, you know, if you have 5 hours to chop down a tree, you spend 4 hours sharpening your axe, right? So now that because we're kind of at the end of our time here. So if God willing, somebody says yes to everything you're saying, and actually in a miraculous moment could be like, okay, I'm going to live the way he's proposing.
Sure.
What then would you say is that last 5% that they could start with without maybe a lot of money and without even a lot of assumed knowledge or skills? Where do you kind of counsel your people as like, well, here's a place to start where you can at least start to get some traction so you can start to get some inspiration that's based in actual results?
Okay, so I'm going to talk to a couple of people. One, like if you're not destitute, even if you are, so there are like business is so simple and so overly complicated by people who want to confuse you.
Right.
By the way, let me say this: truth is always simple. It's lies that are complicated, right? So people pay me, Jeff, I get paid $15,000 an hour for coaching. And that's only for another, whatever today is. What's today's date? May 26th. So that's only for 5 more days. It goes to $25,000 an hour, June 1st. And people say, well, how can you charge people $25,000 an hour for coaching? Because I know that what I teach them to do is going to make them way more money than the money they paid me. So I'm going to tell you where you can go get a free resource from me, where literally if you hired me and paid me $30,000, this is the very first thing I would talk to you about. You say, Myron, but if you charge them $30,000, why would you give it to them for free? And I know that because like if somebody said that to me, that's what I would wonder. Right? You charge me, and in June you charge $50,000. Why would you give it to me for free? Here's why. Because then I don't have to talk to you for 2 hours. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it saves me 2 hours of my time. I already told you, I value time more than I value money. So if I can give you a jump start and help you become a person and give you something that maybe will make you 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 300, $400,000, and I can give that to you, I kind of have a sneaky suspicion you'll come back to me and say, hey, Myron, I want more, right? So I'm okay with that. And then you'll pay me again. So if it saves me my 2 hours, I'll happily give this to you. So at Funnel Hacking Live, which is a conference that had 5,000 people at it, they asked me and 29 other entrepreneurs to share what we did to get our, quote, 2 Comma Club Award. So I have a 2 Comma Club Award, which is you generated over $1 million in the funnel. I have an 8-figure award, which means you generated over 8 figures in a funnel. So share your knowledge. So I literally just sat there instead of letting people ask me questions because the customer's almost always wrong. And they would ask me questions about answers that if I gave them to them, wouldn't matter anyway. I just sat there and I basically for 2 hours and 20 minutes broke down This is what you have to do to have a successful business. I promise you, if I wanted to, Jeff, if I wanted to, I could do a webinar and I could sell this audio and create a workbook to go with it, and I could sell it for $1,000. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. And if somebody wanted to get that from me in coaching, they would pay $30,000. But I'm going to give it to everybody for free. Go to bizfromhomeacademy.com. bizfromhomeacademy.com. You put in your name, your phone number, and your email address. I want to make sure I gave you the right URL. I did that earlier, and then I forgot. So I'm going to make sure I gave you the right URL.
bizfromhomeacademy.com does appear to be going to what you described.
Okay, good. Yes, bizfromhomeacademy.com. Yep, that's me, the guy in the suit and tie to the left of the balloon right there. Yep. That's me, breaking down my business ideas, and these people were gathered around, and I recorded it. And then when I got home, I broke down the audio. I put the audio in my computer, take out the background noise. I cleaned it up. The quality of it's really good, and I literally broke down the 3 common denominators of all great business success. You have to choose the right business model. You have to choose the right business market. And you have to choose the right business message. And those 3 things, I broke them down. I didn't just say that. I broke those 3 things down in such great detail. If you will do those 3 things and you will follow what I laid out in that audio, like, I can't guarantee that you're going to do it, but I can guarantee you if you do it, it will work. Because it can't not work. It's like if you throw something up, it has to come down. I can guarantee that, right? So that's my gift to the people who are a part of this community and listeners to this podcast.
Yeah, and to kind of anchor this back to what you said earlier, if you can create something that has more value to the person that would buy it than what you're asking them to pay for it, but that you can fulfill or deliver for less than what you're asking them to pay for it.
Yes.
That's it. You win. You get the prize. You get the life that you want, right? And so, it sounds like pretty obvious to me that the formula you're describing is a formula to create that.
Absolutely.
And if you do that, it works every time.
Every time. It does not work 7 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10. It works 10 times out of 10.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I may be your first participant. I love this kind of stuff. So.
And if people have questions for me, Jeff, I want to say this. If you have a question for me about anything that I shared today, reach out to me the same way Jeff did. Hit me on Instagram. I'm at Myron Golden on Instagram. If you inbox me, I do answer my own questions. You can testify to that. You sent me a message and said, when can I interview you for my podcast sometime in the next 60 days or something like that? And I said, how about Tuesday, right?
Yeah. I loved it.
Fantastic.
Success loves speed, and we got this done quick.
Oh, yes. And I didn't say this. I was talking about the legacy pillar. I meant to say this and I forgot. The leverage pillar is wealth you have to build fast. The legacy pillar is wealth that you have to be willing to build slowly. If you attempt to build your legacy pillar too fast, you will implode it. And it doesn't matter if it means you over leverage buying real estate, if you try to make too much money in the stock market, whatever, you have to be willing to build your leverage pillar slowly but here's what's going to happen because of time and consistency and compounding. If you build your leverage pillar slowly, what's going to happen is eventually your legacy pillar will make you more money than your leverage pillar. And it'll do it effortlessly. Yeah. The wealth that your money will create for you will be infinitely more than the wealth that your business creates for you after a time period.
I love that you said that. I went through your 4 levels of value video the other day, and that was the point is that at level 4, the highest level of value, that's the level where you actually get to tap into having money make you money.
Absolutely.
And it takes time. It takes time.
Absolutely.
Well, Myron, who I call you that with your permission, I have very, very much enjoyed this. This is a lot more fun than stalking from afar. For sure.
I'm going to take your word for that, bro.
I guess the one thing you can never know, right?
Yeah, there you go.
No, this is tremendous. This is exactly the kind of conversation and value that I was so excited and frankly greedy for when I created the show, the Millionaire Secrets show. So thank you for delivering all that and then some, exactly what the doctor ordered for my audience. I appreciate you. As far as a social follow, you mentioned they contact you on Instagram. Is that where you'd like them to follow you as well?
Sure. And if they want to understand like the foundational stuff that I teach, I do a Bible study for business owners every Wednesday morning. And when I say Bible study, people are like, oh, my goodness, religion. Well, first of all, it's not religion. The Bible's not even a religious book. The Bible has religion in it, but it's not a book about religion. It's a book about government. I don't have time to go into what that means. But but I have a Facebook group called Bible Success Secrets. And I teach in there every Wednesday morning. And we meet at an IHOP here in Tampa, and I broadcast it live on Facebook. It's got hundreds of videos of me teaching business and success concepts. So if somebody wants to follow us there and become a part of that community, the videos that I have in there get more comments and more views than any other videos I put on Facebook.
That's powerful. So Bible Success Secrets on Facebook, yep. Myron Golden on Instagram, and bizfromhomeacademy.com to get $30,000 worth of training.
Correct.
Tremendous. Well, thank you again. Any parting words for the audience?
I'm gonna end with a Jim Rohn quote. It's one of my favorites. No, you know what? I'm gonna end with a poem by an unknown author. And it goes like this: Isn't it funny how princes and kings and clowns who caper in sawdust rings and common folks like you and me were all builders for eternity? To each is given a book of rules, a block of stone and a bag of tools, and each must shape ere time has flown a stumbling block or a stepping stone. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer, it pays you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, then you must bear the task. I work for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. I'm going to challenge each and every one of you to go through life asking more of life than you've ever asked in the past. Thanks again, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Once you set the wages, you must bear the task. That's amazing, man. I can think of no better note to end on. I'm just going to let that ring in the air, man. I appreciate you.
All right. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.